Ever want to take a picture or record an animal far away with your cell phone, but it ends up being a shaky mess or the photos aren't clear? Check out the Snapshot Spotter from Ollin. Designed to go straight on your cell phone. It's a magnetic connection that self-centers for perfect alignment every time. No more shaky videos. Get picture perfect quality with Ollin. Today on the podcast, we got a special guest. He's from the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, Robert Kennon. Welcome to the show, Robert.
Appreciate it, Taylor. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Is your first name Brad or is it Robert?
I go by Brad. First name Robert, middle name's Bradley, but I've always gone by Brad. So
Awesome. Well, Brad, welcome to the show. I appreciate you carving out some time to inform us on deer biology and what the state of Louisiana is doing to protect our deer resource.
yes, sir. Glad to be here.
So, how did you get started in biology? Was it something you grew up wanting to do, or did you find it along the way?
Yeah, just kind of grew up hunting, fishing. That was my world. If it was if it was legal to go after, I was going after it. So that kind of bled over into that time where I was needing to decide what am I going to do with my life. Started going looking and seeing different degrees I could get, and ended up going to Louisiana Tech for wildlife habitat management and getting my background through school that way. So um, just kind of always had wildlife and habitat is kind of a passion of mine. So it worked out real well for myself.
That's awesome. Are you from North Louisiana?
Originally from Central Louisiana, around Colfax is where I went to high school. Had some family near and around Jonesville, and just kind of bounced around right there. Um, then once I went to school at Louisiana Tech, just kind of been a transplant up here. Uh, kind of been up here ever since. So um, looking at about 12 years with the department right now. Spent a few years with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service before that. That was actually my first job right out of college. Was working for the refuge complex there, like Darbone, Upper Washita, Black Bayou. Those were the areas I had my first job out of school with, anyways.
That's awesome, and those are some great areas if, anybody's listening, if they just wanna take a stroll, go hiking or hunt, fish, those are great areas to do that in. So tell us about this, about the deer program. Is it just you or you got a crew? How's that work out?
Yeah, so right now my title is Deer Program Specialist. My supervisor is the Deer Program Manager, and we are essentially on staff with the Deer Program. We're the two guys that are tasked on that program. But we've got a ton of staff regionally throughout the state that whether it's on our WMAs or private lands that really kind of carry the program with the day to day duties, in a sense of making sure that our private landowners are getting a good bit of technical assistance, as well as our WMAs. Really, just trying to manage for a healthy and sustainable deer herd all across the state. And while we kind of take care and make sure that the program's running smooth, we couldn't do it without the region staff that we used as well. So we're uh we're two guys in the program, but we've got a a big list of people that help carry that weight too. So
So what does it look like, for Louisiana biologists, in the deer program? How did walk me through, when you start out, let's say in January, how does that year look like for y'all?
yeah, so January, hunting season's starting to wrap up. We're in constant contact with our hunters and say DMAP cooperators, checking on seeing how the season's going. Once hunting season's over, we're getting in contact with our DMAP cooperators. We're analyzing data that's harvested all throughout the hunting season, and we're getting basically a harvest summary to see how that deer herd is doing. What we're looking at, different things. Um, And as that kind of winds down, once we're basically wrapped up collecting that data, um, and analyzing it, we're starting to run into the spring where it's starting to green up a good bit. So we're doing a lot of habitat site visits, browse surveys, habitat assessments, just to kind of see where, whether it's our WMAs or DMAP cooperators or just your average person that's looking to do some habitat management on their property. We can come out and just kind of see what that habitat looks like. If there's any type of management that needs to be done, we spend a good bit of time doing that. Um, just seeing what if things need to be changed. What are some different ideas that we could do. And then whenever we come into, moving more into the summer, we're still doing those habitat assessments, but we're also getting ready for the upcoming season. The summer doesn't last long once it gets here. So we've got a big season that we try to prep everything as far as making sure our seasons are set. We're getting our hunting pamphlets put out, tags ordered, um, making sure that we've met with a lot of our DMAP clubs for those cooperators that are enrolled in it. Um, Once we get all of that distributed right before the fall, it kind of turns into from habitat assessment. We've been building all this time working on plans, and it's time to put it into place. Leading up into hunting season, we're meeting with hunting clubs. If they have anything that needs to be changed or recommended, we do it at that time. And hunting season really, at one time it was kind of for the biology staff, it was kind of I wouldn't say a slow time, but you put all this time into planning for it, and it's time to kind of let it do its job, let the plan work. So um, during hunting season, we're actually we're doing a lot of, whether it's disease investigation, herd health. We're checking on our clubs, making sure things are running smooth, getting reports from our hunting clubs that we deal with. Our WMAs, we have different managed hunts that we work. We're making sure that the public land group or users are getting some attention in that stance too. So we're collecting data on the WMAs and really building up towards that, throughout the season, collect all that information that we need. We're doing a lot of CWD testing at that time, mainly because of our CWD testing is voluntary, and it's utilized through hunter harvested deer. So I mean that basically means we're not the ones going out there and killing the deer. We've got hunters out there that are doing it. We might as well take advantage of that whenever we can. So that's a big time during hunting season as well. We're checking on things periodically throughout the season. As that goes on, you know, again, we're building all of this data. That way, we can use it whenever we roll back into that planning time, to make sure everything's good for the next season.
You don't really get a break, but it is good to see watch your plan unfold, and especially, we have a lot of good harvest up in North Louisiana. What you talked about a healthy deer herd, that doesn't really start, with the hunting season. What can landowners do during each season to help the deer herd? Is it spring plots, summer plots? And if it is, what should those plots consist of?
Yeah, so you're looking at managing a herd. You got to think of about like anything that you would be managing. First thing I would really recommend to do is, to actually collect, that hunter, collect some good data, understand what they've actually got to work with. I mean, it's hard to manage something that you're not measuring in that sense. Kind of like if you were thinking about your bank account, you can't really manage your money if you're not paying attention to how much you got. So
Right.
throughout hunting season, collecting body weights, um, sex data, body weights, antler measurement, lactation. Lactation is a big one when we're looking at um, reproduction and recruitment, to know kind of where we're at with what's coming along down in the future. And then a big thing that ties all of those harvest metrics together would be age. So if you have the opportunity to collect some jawbones and get it to one of our biologists, and we would be happy to help age those deer and kind of get an idea of what that age structure looks like. And if you're in, if those cooperators are in DMAP, they're kind of already doing that. But also, when you're looking at, you want to make sure that your deer herd has the maximum available resources. Okay, so what that looks like is being able to always have those deer in excess of what they need. So making sure that habitat's in good working order for them. A lot of people like to think about food plots and what they need to plant, and sometimes properties, that's about all you can do in that sense. But um, if you're looking at say summertime food plots, or if your herd is not quite in check, if your herd's not where it needs to be as far as population wise, then you may not be getting the best bang for your buck on that sense. So um, that goes back into making sure your deer herd is actually within its carrying capacity for that habitat. Um, but then too, you look at different types of habitat management, whether that's timber harvest, timber thinning of any sort, prescribed fire, use a herbicide, food plots. All of those things are going to be very beneficial in making sure that that habitat is where it needs to be for the deer herd that's out there.
Yeah, a lot of people, they think just because you go plant something, you're gonna have deer readily available. I mean, I've ran into instances where I've planted different kind of things, but the acorns drop either too early, too late, and that natural food source. I feel like they are drawn to that uh, more than something that you're gonna plant. I mean, I know they'll still go eat it. If you're baiting with corn or however, it just seems like whenever those acorns drop, they leave that corn alone.
Yeah, so if you look at what's out there naturally, if you were to actually look at the nutrients contents in those plants that they utilize. You could look at your annual Forbes. That's going to be kind of like that ice cream, the best thing that they want. They're very useful for a deer. Lots of nutrients. Then of course your woody browse, which will kind of carry them from one time to the next. It's a lot of those plants are very nutritious as well. And then leading into like some hard mass where it's kind of building up throughout the winter, but they're not, that hard mass is really not sustaining them year round. So um, when you look at summertime food plots or warm season food plots, it's good to think of as something that's supplemental. It's there to add a little bit of extra, but I would always kind of recommend to make sure that your habitat is in good shape. There's plenty of sunlight reaching the forest floor, and that those native plants can have a chance to grow, because that's really what those deer are gonna spend most of their time on there. When you're looking at cool season food plots, that's also something that's very beneficial to them if you have the opportunity to do that. Kind of plays into, you can plant the right thing that where by the time the acorns are gone and the all of the browse is gone, that there's still something out there for them. But deer are very good at adapting to what their resources are. So just most of my emphasis is tied back to making sure that the habitat is there, so you're not really always relying just on the food plots. So it's good to have them if you can, but it's better to make sure that the deer herd is in good shape, as well as the habitat that they're utilizing year round. So
No, that's great information. So, like, to get a what you would consider a healthy herd, I know it depends on size of the landscape. Deer don't know property boundaries. What would be a good doe to buck ratio if you're seeing, say, on a 100 acres or 50 acre landscape?
yeah, I mean, if of course it would be great to have 1-to-1 kind of ratio, but lots of times that's not really realistic. But of course, that would be kind of a target to shoot for. All acreage. Really, my big recommendation is to get in contact with your neighbors, have good working relationships with them, and kind of get on the same idea for what you're wanting to, what your objectives are. So that way, y'all can. You may be a small landowner, but when you're combining each of your efforts, you're getting on the same both able to benefit. That being said, a deer's home range can overlap quite a few different landowners. So um, while you may have a certain type of habitat that they're utilizing at a certain time of the year or maybe a certain time of the day, it's definitely beneficial to whatever your harvest is. Make sure it's sustainable, and then just to make sure you're in a good ballpark idea for what you and your neighboring landowners are doing. That's always very beneficial.
I feel like there's more deer now in the at least North Louisiana than there was when I was growing up. I know it used to be buck only days and this and that. We've kind of relaxed that a little bit in most cases. What caused that, and do you think it's working?
Yeah, so just to kind of go back to when you're looking at the population of deer in Louisiana, at one time there were major portions of Louisiana that really didn't have many deer. So back in the 40s up into the 60s, late 40s through the early 60s, where we had a restocking program, and those deer were, it basically was a population boom to where, of course, we have deer in all 64 parishes, and all habitat type of Louisiana. Deer are readily found, and really in pretty good population sizes too. Um, Leading up into the point where we incorporated uh, our DMAP efforts to allow basically those areas that once didn't have any deer, they ended up having too many. So um, that being said, you needed to kind of control that antlerless population. That you control your doe herd to reduce that population, or at least manage it. DMAP gave a lot of private landowners the opportunity to do so. In the sense where, we had doe days for quite some time, but we eventually got away from that. So your average hunter on your smaller acreage that might not have reached the criteria to be in DMAP, they could manage that deer herd as well. We had plenty of deer to at that point to where we could have some antlerless harvest and not affect the overall population growth. Our population statewide is doing really well. Um, we use some harvest reconstruction to get an estimate of over a million deer in the state right now. And that being said, there are some areas that are really kind of having troubles with almost too many deer at times. So if you look at kind of where the harvest is, we've got a couple different ways that we track that, and that harvest again this year was actually a 10-year record harvest of deer, and it's been climbing for some time. So until that's really kind of flatlines, you're assuming that your population is in very good sustainable levels to where we can continue that antlerless harvest within our bag limit.
I remember a couple of years ago, I think it was 2022, right before we had our thinning on our property. I was sitting there watching 13 does, and I get a cell camera picture, and there's 12, I don't know, probably 100 yards through the woods at my other spot, and I was like, okay, this probably isn't right. This needs to be taken care of a little bit. So used up all my doe tags. I think trying to go after those big mature does without babies, and that's just one effort that I try to put in. That I think on 60 acres, 26 does or whatever it was at that time. And that's just the ones I'm seeing. That might be a little bit too much.
Yeah, that's a common scenario that I've heard pretty often from different hunters around the state. And it's important to recognize, if you're thinking 60 acres and that many deer, um, leading back into what I mentioned earlier with the maximum available resources, where they're feeding at that point, at some time those resources are going to get lower, and you want to make sure that the deer on that area are within carrying capacity. So that basically means that whatever's out there naturally available for them is not going to be hindered it's not going to really be limited to the deer that are out there. So that's a great effort to do so with managing the doe herd like you did. But you also have to recognize that the property that you're on, that is, those deer are very likely overlapping your property and your neighbor's property, and that kind of ties back into what I mentioned earlier, with having a good working relationship with your neighbor, to where y'all can, kind of be on the same game plan.
Yeah, 100%. And it all depends. I think you can agree with this. Depends on, where you're hunting. Are you hunting property lines? Are they coming from your neighbor? Um, are you got to stand in the middle of your property? Maybe there's bedding on your property. Maybe these other deer aren't. They're just coming through. There's so many details that go into saying, okay, I need to do something. That's when y'all come in and can give input and tell us, okay, well, look, your land can sustain because you got so much property diversity that it actually is okay.
Right, right. Yeah, and that's all a part of getting out on the landscape and kind of realizing what you have available. A lot of people likely show up and they get on their hunting club or hunting property right there before hunting season and get their stands together, but it's important to realize what's going on around you. So again, measuring what you're managing, and that's not just the deer herd with harvest data, but it's managing realizing what habitats you actually have on the landscape.
100%. And you talked about, our deer numbers climbing as far as harvest rates. Do you think hunters in general are aging out, and how would that affect the herd? Of course, it's going to make it not necessarily boom because we're taking more deer, but those deer might still be increasing in herd sizes, even though we're having record high numbers.
Yeah, we definitely have an older average age of hunters now than what we did, say, 20 years ago. Um, like there too, we're harvesting more deer than we ever have. So we're at least keeping up in that sense. But um, that's that's important for our future. As hunters and land managers and deer managers to recognize that um, it's important to bring in new hunters. And that doesn't always mean just kids. If you got a hunter of any age that has never done it before, and you can bring them along and show them what all it takes to be a deer hunter. That's very important to the future of uh of hunting in general. And while I'm a deer nut, I think it really ties back into to all game species as well. Get them started squirrel hunting or get them started rabbit hunting, anything that kind of gets them out there, um, and keeps them out there. So that's the big thing that is very important to to recognize is that we've got to look out for the future. And I've got two boys that I'm looking forward to see them grow. But if one day they've got some buddies that have never been hunting before, I'm gonna be sure to bring them along and give them opportunities as well. So um, if you're looking into the future, if our hunters numbers drop and our the main chunk of our hunters are older, and as they age out, of course that could affect the overall harvest. um but at this time, we're still killing a bunch of deer in Louisiana, and we've got a very healthy population. So
Yeah, I agree. I know we're talking about mostly deer, but anything like you said, squirrel, coon, ducks. I think that's kind of the easier way to introduce kids because they don't have to necessarily be quiet the whole time. And I know uh, most of the time, just for the parents, just don't get frustrated. My boy growing up, he's 9 now, but when he was going when he was 5, 6, and we've killed deer. But I also strategized the stands to where, hey, I'm not going to go hunt my best stand that I'm trying to kill this buck on. I might have one closer to the house or somewhere where an easy escape route. So if it gets 4 o'clock and he's ready to go, hey, let's just go back. Let's back out. Don't make him sit there and make it miserable for him. Kind of ease his way into it.
yeah, I agree. I've got a I've got a 6-year old and a 2-year old, and I'm working on both of those youngins to make sure that they're enjoying their time when I have them out there. So um, that's if we go out there and we can only hunt for an hour and they're starting to get um, restless, and then that's kind of all right. It's time to go because the last thing I want to do is to get them burnt out at such a young age. So, but they're too squirrel hunting. I got a squirrel dog. I bring them, and they're able to make as much noise as they want to, and it's not an issue. And that's kind of where they are learning how to be out in the woods and how to hunt in general is just to get out there no matter what we're doing. So
The pinnacle of precision and performance. This is the entire focus of the Ultra Arrow, and this is why it exists, so archers can constantly achieve precise accuracy with every arrow released. Ultra Arrows is ran by archers, developed by archers. The ultimate goal is bringing you an arrow that exceeds expectations. This is why this year we'll be partnering with Ultra Arrows and the rest of the outdoor group. We'll be shooting the Phantom Arrow series. Visit ultraarrows.com today to order yours and stay rugged. Going to prescribed burns, you know, that might be something that landowners might need to consider. How soon do deer use those burns after it's been put out? And should a small landowner consider doing this on their property?
yeah, so prescribed burning is a very useful tool, especially to the small landowner, in the sense of um, basically what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to make sure that the habitat is in a good working order, working size and conditions for the deer that are using it. And to do that, we're looking at setting back succession, which is basically succession being you want to keep it early successional, that all of those plants are in um, kind of in reach of deer to be able to utilize that. So if you got a place that's getting a little bit too thick and grown up, and you're starting to turn into more of the like that small shrub size where it's basically within a deer's mouth. It's basically you're starting to get a pretty dense mid story. You're wanting to set that back beforehand. So prescribed fire is a great time, great management tool to do that. It doesn't small acreages. It's pretty manageable with just a couple guys. So it's definitely you don't have to worry about quite as much with herbicide, and you can set it back in that at least in that pine setting anyway. So um, deer will utilize it pretty quick. As depending on what time of year you're actually doing your prescribed fire, it'll kind of show a different um, outcome of what's growing. So if you do a dormant season burn, it may be a little bit before green up. It may take a little bit longer before they start to utilize it, but say if you're doing more of a growing season burn, that those plants they start growing, as soon as they get some sunlight on the ground. So it may be as early as a week or two whenever things start growing again. So it's a very beneficial tool. There's people out there that can show small landowners how to. There's some different community based outreach kind of things where landowners are helping other landowners. If you need your property burned and you don't quite have the manpower, then there's groups out there that you can reach out to, and you're basically helping each other as a community to manage your property too. There's also some different cost share programs out there, whether it's through our department or through we have what's called a Louisiana Forest Initiative right now. Our private land biologists could help landowners with, and we also have NRCS cost share programs that could help out as well with different types of habitat management, whether that's fire, um, timber thinning, timber planting, uh, or just kind of reforested, just typical wildlife habitat management. There's options out there for the small landowner as well.
Yeah, agreed. And it's not just deer. I know we're talking a lot about deer, but it benefits turkeys. It benefits all wildlife. It's definitely very beneficial. But I wanna talk about, Louisiana has one of the longest rifle seasons, out of any state, but, that's actually beneficial to our youth, getting them out there longer periods of time, being able to shoot a rifle. So do you think we'll ever have a September season for bow hunting?
Yes, actually, this year we are going to have for the 26-27 season. We will have an early archery season. That season will be specifically tied to our CWD management zones. Um, those zones are included in Area 1, 2, and 6. Those dates will be uh, for Area 2 will actually start August 29th and run through until September 6th. And then areas 1 and 6 will be September 12th through um, September 20th. So those will be the dates for those. It's basically a velvet season, early archery for bucks only. So that'll be a new season that we're getting into play. Uh, and we're tying them specifically to the CWD management zones in a sense of incorporates the need to harvest some additional deer, but it also offers some landowners and hunters that um, they've been in a CWD control area for some time now, and just to give them a little extra opportunity. So that will be again for the 26-27 hunting season. Early archery, velvet. That's private land only.
Okay, so you're telling me I'm behind. I need to go set stands out right now.
Maybe so, maybe so. Again, that's private land only inside those CWD management zones, and yeah, so we'll be seeing some deer season pretty quick. So right around the corner.
Now, will those harvest, in that special season, will that be 100% check-in station, or will it still be the
It's
data collected on the app reporting as well?
Yeah, that's just your standard reporting that we've had over the last several years of just as if it were the normal season. So no check-in stations or anything like that. Private land only. So your text to tag or your normal tagging and reporting. So
I think the new, tagging system that y'all have is, very beneficial. It's easy to use, we kinda got up with the times with all the smartphones and stuff like that, and now with, texting through satellites, there's really no excuse why you shouldn't be, tagging that deer and calling it in and all that. Uh, Going to that, data is, that's how y'all collect y'all's harvest and check-in stations, app reporting. How confident are you in those harvest numbers comparing to the potential actuals? Because there's always going to be those outlaws out there, and I definitely recommend anybody seeing somebody doing the wrong thing, coach them up. They might not know, that's not an excuse for the law, but it actually, I mean, it's very beneficial to get it to y'all as far as information because that's how y'all judge the future years.
yeah, so we track annual harvest, and that's one thing that we're utilizing to kind of see what some of the status of what our population is. And it's important to know that we're not to get fixed on a specific number, but we're really looking at the trend over time. So, what I mean by that is you want to see, of course, you'd want to see an increasing trend over time, or a consistent trend over time. As soon as you start seeing it, it's starting to be a negative trend for a number of years, and that'll like it'll trigger something that needs to be done to fix that. And you'll have some fluctuation between years. Of course, every year is going to be a different set of conditions that could impact harvest overall. Currently, we're sitting about. We had a 10-year high, but we've also seen an increasing harvest for some time now. So um, we have a couple different ways that we are tracking harvest. Okay, so the think of the reported harvest with your tagging system. We've been tracking that since the 2008 2009 hunting season, and basically that gives us, we've at least got this many deer that's been harvested throughout the state. We're tracking a few different things with that, private land, public land, all of those sorts of things, but we're also tracking harvest through our hunter harvest survey. We've got a we've been tracking that. It's kind of a historical tracking that we've been doing since the 1970s. So at one time it was a mail-based survey, is now turned into an email-based survey. But it gives you that historical data to where you're able to compare. Essentially, you're able to compare the 25-26 hunting season with the, say, the 1975 hunting season. That's those, you're asking the same sorts of questions. You're sampling from the same estimated number of hunters out there, and you can extrapolate it out there. And while those are two different tracking estimate types, when you're looking at actual reported harvest and then an estimated harvest, those trends complement each other very well. So anytime you're seeing an increase in your reported harvest, if you're going to that estimated harvest, you're seeing the same exact trend pretty much every year. So that allows us to kind of get a bottom number. The very minimum deer that's being harvested is the reported number, and then you can look at that estimated harvest, which would be the top number. And as long as you're in between there, um, and those trends are tracking together, they're complementing each other, then you're in good shape. So that being said, that's a long answer to the fact of, yes, we're pretty confident that we're in good shape as far as being able to monitor our deer herd in that aspect. So
And I think a lot of people over the years, maybe not at first, but I'd say probably today's age, have kind of gotten on board with more of the conservation side, knowing, hey, we need to be doing this right thing because we need to sustain this resource that, that we have. Because I mean, it could go back to the 40s. I mean, if you're not monitoring this, and we don't have no more deer, which I don't think that's going to be the case. I think everybody's on board, but that's just an instance of what could happen if everybody's killing at will.
yeah, and yeah, to be honest with you, some of the best ways to manage deer is to manage people, and part of that is going to be education and outreach, and something as simple as this podcast. You getting a little bit of information out there, and giving hunters the information that they need to make their objectives and management strategies to suit what they're looking for. So um, that being said, I mean, if you look at um, how we're able to look at our DMAP data, okay, so those cooperators within our DMAP program, we're in constant communication with them. And if you're thinking of Louisiana, most people probably wouldn't think of them as being a mature buck state that we're doing. Everybody thinks everybody's shooting a spike or a 4 point. Okay, well, we have the ability to track what age deer are being harvested, and say like other states historically, year and a half old bucks are probably making up about 75% of their harvest. Okay, well, tracking our DMAP data and the hunters that are making those plans and those objectives through education, in Louisiana, it's lower than 15% of what that year and a half old buck harvest is. Okay, so to be honest with you, actually, the National Deer Association has been tracking um, all of the states, harvest data for some time now, and actually over the last 10 years, Louisiana has been top five for mature bucks or bucks 3.5 and older. As far as that being the highest average of harvest, so um, that's something that you put into context where you're looking at other DMAP data from other states. That's pretty good, and we've been able to reach that through education and getting that information out there to allow them to kind of strategize to harvest bucks off of age rather than just the first deer that comes out. So um, it also gives us the opportunity to educate with antlerless harvest, and kind of pitch that idea and give them the right information to know what they need to harvest. So that helps them out tremendously.
Yeah, I think the one of the misconceptions is horn size. That has nothing to do with the age of a deer because there's so many variables. Habitat. Did the deer sustain an injury during the growth season? You just because you don't shoot a 160 or 140 doesn't mean you don't have mature deer on your property. I remember one instance I killed a 3 point, but he was actually I think 5 years old is what it was aged at. So that doesn't mean that you don't have mature deer. It's just it's just a lot of variables.
Correct. Yeah. So there's more often than not, you'll have when you're managing strictly off of antler size. What you'll do is you'll actually get some high grading of your deer to you may shoot your better deer at a younger age, and the older age class of deer that are out there actually something that may be not quite meeting your harvester criteria. So um, having that plan for managing based off of age is in my book always going to be the best strategy. Um, that's not saying that utilizing some of that antler measurement data to give you an idea help you out with that age estimation. Of course, if you over time, if you're consistently seeing that say a 18-inch main beam is a 4.5-year-old buck, then you have a good idea whenever that deer's alive. Like, okay, well that looks like a over 18 inches, then you know where to gives you some more idea of what that age might be on that deer. So
100%. Going back to what you mentioned, and ever since I said, "Hey, we got potential to do this podcast," the first question that is asked is, "Are we going to talk about CWD?" And I know that y'all get questions all the time, probably in public or emailed in. How is CWD spread, and has it always been here? It's just that we're now tracking it easier, or there's new technology to see that. How is it spread, and has it always been here?
yeah, so CWD is considered a TSE when you're looking at what type of diseases they are. And that means TSE is a transmissible spongiform encephalopathy. So that basically means it's transmissible from deer to deer. Um, and encephalopathy is just disease of the brain. And spongiform is basically that's what happens to the deer's brain. It looks like a sponge if you were to look at it under a microscope. Okay, so um, it's caused by misfolded proteins called prions. And prions occur naturally in the body, but these prions are misfolded. So they basically restructure the brain tissue, and it kind of messes up all of the connections that your brain, the deer's brain doesn't function properly. Um, those prions are shed into the environment. They can be, passed from deer to deer. Where there's bodily fluids, urine, saliva can be passed through feces. Naturally decomposition of the tissue of an infected deer could infect the environment as well. So that being said, the deer you know, main transmission would be, either deer to deer or say, you know, deer are eating in the same localized area, whether that's urine or feces or saliva that shed those prions, that then another deer coming and getting it, eating out of the same area or something of that sort. So, um, to ask if it's always been here, no, it hasn't always been here. This disease it's a very slow moving disease. A lot of times you don't see effects of the disease for some time, and that's kind of where we're at in our state, where we first found it in Tensall Parish in 2022, and it increases over time to where that prevalence has grown in that area. More deer have gotten it from each other, um, and if you were to say it was always here, then we would have found it in other places than just one. We've been sampling CWD testing for since 2002. Our sampling efforts increased in 2018 when Mississippi got their first positive. And ever since we've increased testing tremendously, and to say that it was there before 2022, yeah, of course that's a fair assumption right there. But to say that we have always had CWD, um, that's would be false, because we would see it, have seen we would have seen it show up, whether it's just in our normal testing, or at some point you see other states have shown that you start to see um, say a collapse in age structure of your deer, or even if your prevalence gets high enough, that you actually would see some population decline. Now that would take a number of years, and where we are in that is hard to say. But we keep tracking, and we try to make mitigation efforts to reduce that spread. And we're there again. We're using information that we have. So um, that's kind of where what we've been doing with CWD is really, um, there's no cure for it. So you have to kind of mitigate for that spread, whether that's carcass transportation restrictions, or where we've historically had some baiting restrictions. And while those may not be the golden ticket to completely stop the spread, we know that congregating deer in an unnatural manner it's not recommended. So that's kind of where we've been with that. So make the decisions that you can at the time with the information that you have. So that's how we tried to manage CWD in Louisiana.
So with that, if a hunter comes across a deer, harvest a deer in the CWD zone, what should they do with the carcass step by step if they've harvested deer within that zone?
Yeah, so if you're hunting in a CWD management zone, it is recommended to have your deer tested. Testing in Louisiana is 100% voluntary, and it is 100% uh, free to the hunter. We've got testing sites all around our CWD management zones. Basically allows 24-hour drop off during hunting season. And then we've also got our regional offices and biologists that can help facilitate that testing as well. If you're looking at what to do with the carcass, we do have carcass movement or carcass transportation regulations, to where as long as you're staying inside the CWD management zone, you're going to be fine. But you cannot take it outside of that management zone. Um, so say if you're at the hunting club and you clean your deer out there, then that's where I would leave that carcass. I would leave it on the landscape, just whether that's field dressing or just quartering out. That's where I would leave that carcass. If you do need to move it to your house or some other place to dispose of that carcass or to clean that deer, you could always double bag and send it to a landfill, or just leave it on the property. You may clean it on the property in a different location, and then of course just dispose of it on the property. Uh, a lot of people in the past have dump it, toss it over a bridge or put it in a waterway or something like that, and that's not recommended, because that's another way that it could transport that carcass on further downstream. So
So, Brad, can hunters move meat outside of the CWD management zone after a kill?
yeah, of course. They can move. Basically, the meat is fine as long as there's not any brain or spinal column attached to it. So basically, quartered or deboned meat um, it can be moved outside of the CWD management zone. If you're looking at amount with a deer, with a buck, you can do either our online taxidermy waiver, which is pretty quick. It takes about 5 minutes to complete. I mean, that's basically just letting the taxidermist know that they'll need to dispose of those parts um, accordingly. Just You could also do just your standard skull cap or cleaned skull like a European mount. Um, that wouldn't need the permit if you've already done it while it's inside the management zone. But meat's fine to take out as long as it's not the whole carcass. So if it's inside the management zone and you have a processor there, by all means you can bring it to them inside the management zone. Otherwise, you would need to either have it quartered or deboned. We actually have videos of how to do that on our website. You can go to our CWD page on our website that has all sorts of resources to help you out with that. So
Fieldware is made for the work that happens long before opening day and continues when season ends. Built for early mornings, full days, and real use. Hard wearing where it needs to be, versatile where it matters. No shortcuts. Just gear designed for the work that earns the season. The Gravel Pant is an all-season durable utility pant constructed from stretched duck cotton and featuring First Light's best-selling straight leg 308 fit. The pants are loaded for whatever the day brings. Visit firstlight.com today to order yours. It's recommended to have your deer tested. That test is 100% voluntary, and it's 100% free of charge to the hunter. We want to stress that it's at no cost to the hunter for sure. Inside our CWD management zones, we have drop off locations, 24/7 drop off of the that head for us to get those samples. We also have regional offices, or you could just call and we could make arrangements to get that sample from y'all. So um, that's in a nutshell of if you're in the CWD management zone and what to do. Our sampling efforts are, we're getting results back, and at best is usually uh, up to a week and a half, or the busier times of the year, it may be up to 3 weeks. But even still, just a reminder that testing is voluntary and free of charge. So it's just a service that we're providing to the hunters and the landowners and managers around, that they can keep tabs on what's going on their property. And for some places, if you take it to a processor, they actually ask that question, "Hey, do you mind you mind us sending this off to get checked?" And I want to say it's probably 100% that they don't mind. Yeah, most hunters are doing just fine. They're being a great help to us by testing their deer. Again, like I mentioned earlier, um, you got to measure what you're managing. Okay, so you don't know that you have CWD unless you test for it. So that's where we're at with that. Um, processors some processors have been a tremendous help to us in providing samples for us, and that's again, that's voluntary to them as well. So um, if you've got a processor that you'd like to, basically all you have to ask is, um, if y'all can just cut the head off just below the jawline, or I say between the jawline and the throat patch, then it's usually plenty enough tissue for us to get our samples. So if while people are hunting or just on their property, if they see strange behavior associated with CWD or any behavior, how do they go about reporting that? Yeah, so the symptoms of CWD are kind of, that's one of the hard parts about CWD is, while deer can get CWD and they can shed prions as early as 6 months from contracting it, it could be up to 18 months before they start showing symptoms. Symptoms of just neurologic symptoms, kind of out of their head, walking in circles, just a real dull mentation, not not really worried about somebody walking up to them. That's always a red flag. But there's some other diseases that could show similar symptoms too, in stages of EHD, uh, even rabies. They could show some of those same neurological symptoms. Emaciation, of course, is a really really poor deer. Um,
But reporting those, of course, just give us a call. Any of our region offices, we can facilitate testing those deer. If they're dead, or it's always good to report either way, so we can kind of keep tabs with what's going on out there in our state.
If this CWD, like you said, 6 months to 18 months. So really, by the time we find out that we have a problem, it's already we're behind the eight ball, right? So if it becomes an endemic, what could we see? Is it going to be shorter seasons, longer seasons? Do we need to harvest more? What I know it's kind of hard to say at this point, but is there any insight that we might see? The course 10 years if we can't get this under control.
Yeah, it depends on where you're at within your prevalence. But really, early stages CWD management, really, to be honest with you, looks like a lot of just basic deer management, to where you want to make sure that you're harvesting enough deer. So that being said, likely not going to decrease seasons at all. We're actually promoting um, the same, if not more, harvest, just to kind of make sure that that population is within a manageable level. That it's not, of course, more deer on the landscape would offer more opportunity for the disease to spread. So keeping that population in check. That recommendation would be the same recommendation if I had just some basic deer management to make sure that the population's in check. So as far as opportunity goes, nothing should change with that. Of course, if you're looking at end stages, if you're looking at places like, say, northwest Arkansas, where um, their population has dropped to a point of, maybe one deer per, um, say one deer, two deer, three deer per square mile is pretty low. Of course, your harvest may be restricted at that point for no other reason than that there's not many deer out there to harvest anyway. So um, as far as our seasons goes, we're not shortening seasons at all. If anything, we're wanting to harvest more deer again, more opportunity to keep that population in check.
And continue on looking forward. If you had unlimited funding for Louisiana, what would you want to track, or what would you want to see done if it was unlimited funds?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. So when we're looking at any research project and the funding for those projects, you're looking at needing to answer very specific questions that could implicate, how you manage, whether it's the habitat or the population um, or any of those things. So you've got to have specific questions that you need answers to. Okay, in that sense, we've say like right now we've got a research project, a movement ecology project, seeing where and how deer are using the batcher along the Mississippi River, which is the unprotected side of the levee. And that's of course to give us some insight as that river comes up. How far are they going? Where are they going? Why are they going that far? That could give us a lot of insight to. In this case particular, was that's the first place that we found CWD in Louisiana. So we need to know, how far are these deer going when the river comes up. Again, answering very specific questions. And that's kind of a hard question to answer, as far as if I had unlimited funding, because there's in the future we may see some different questions that pop up. But there's some very interesting things that are coming up in the CWD world, trying to get ideas of how to manage that much better. But then there too, some good habitat management research is always a great thing to have, just to let us know, inform us of different ways that we can efficiently manage the habitat or the population in the state would be great. There's also some human dimension sides of things, like how we're interacting with our hunters, and what's the best way to do that to effectively get good quality information to the public, to kind of get rid of the noise of some misinformation out there. What's the best way to reach our stakeholders, our land managers, our public hunters, our private hunters, all of the sort, all in one way to get our message out there with good education. So that being said, that might look like a research project in itself, is to kind of get behind the mind of what our audience looks like to best reach those guys. So um, again, there's kind of endless options out there, but always have to tie it back to our research has to answer very specific questions that could help us in the future. So I'm looking forward to see what that could be in the future. I don't know if I answered your question that well, but that's kind of all tied into it. We've got a lot of different partners, whether it's universities or other states or some other stakeholders that kind of they may propose the question of things, and if it can help us and benefit us, then of course then we're going to participate in those. So looking forward to see what that could look like in the future.
No, that was a great answer. I know it's kind of like it was a very vague question, so I was just wondering, what your thought process is on that. What is one thing that the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries needs help with from the public?
It really is. It's sourcing information from our department would be great. Our communication between the public and our agency is very it's critical when it comes to us being able to relay accurate information. A good constant communication between the two is great for us. It gives us a ton of information. So that's one thing. I mean, if you're looking at the deer world, if you've got questions on something, then reach out to us. We've got us in the deer program. We've got plenty of opportunity to just discuss things with the public. We've got regional staff that are very knowledgeable about all sorts of different wildlife and habitat management strategies that reach out to us. We'll be glad to get you that information. If we don't know the answer to a question, then that's fine. We'll work on it and get it back to you.
You get a lot of misinformation, like you just said, and just calling y'all. I mean, I emailed you and you answered back. Y'all are not hiding nothing. If you have the information, you're gonna give it to us. But what is one thing that maybe we need to do better on our public lands besides, I know we do. There's some people that have pickup days, where we try to clean up the trash. Is there any help that people can get involved in on the public land side? And if so, where can they find that information?
Yeah, so our public land side, we do have clean up the boot time of year, where basically the best way to go about that would be to just reach out to your region office and see what different voluntary opportunities are out there. So it always helps to pick up trash behind yourself and clean up what you see out there. That helps out tremendously. Um, when it comes to hunting season, just treating the other hunters with respect, treat the property with respect, because that's again we're trying to protect things for the future, and if you're not if you're not part of the solution, then you might be part of the problem. So it helps out if you everybody just kind of does their part and what you would think would be a good neighborly thing to do.
That's your land that the state or federal government has designated to allow people to come to hunt. So just treat it like you would treat your own property. That's a resource that, that's not, it could go away quick if we're not taking care of these areas.
Right, right, absolutely. And then just get out there and use those areas too. So if the demand is out there for hunters to need a place to hunt, then of course go out there and utilize those WMAs that we have available, because that lets us have the opportunity to show interest in those lands, and we're able to keep going at that end goal of having that resource available. So get out, get hunting, be respectful of other hunters and other users. A lot of times we get, whether it's deer hunters think that the squirrel hunters are messing them up or vice versa, or we're all out there to do the same thing and to utilize that resource that's available to us. So being respectful is a great way to keep that available.
100%. And it's just a part of it. I mean, sometimes you get out, and you might be hunting 50 yards from somebody, but I mean, it's just kind of, it is what it is. Just be respectful. I always like to use the rule at least 300, 400 yards away from somebody. Is that always achievable? Yes and no, right? I mean, daylight's coming up and you've done track 3 miles back into the woods and there's somebody there. Well, it's just one of those things, right? I mean, you just gotta get in where you fit in and just be, like you said, be respectful. That's the biggest thing. Nobody wants to go out there and have a bad day. Everybody's there for one goal, and that's to enjoy the wildlife, and it's not always about the kill.
Right, right. Yeah, I agree.
So for young teens or kids that might be listening to this podcast or want to get involved, maybe on the biology side, what's kind of the one thing that you could shed light on as far as a tip or something other than just hey, go get a degree? What are some things that you found out growing up that you probably could have, if you knew the answer to it, you could have expedited your where you at today.
Well, that's a great question, and leading into that, we've got a great hunter education department with our agency that, um, whether that's you know going to a education class, or we have things even to like geared to say like becoming an outdoor woman. That's another um, thing that has kind of spurred off of our hunter education department. It provides opportunity. That section of our agency gives great opportunity to not only just youth, women that have not been in outdoors, but beginning hunters in general. Then we have things like coming up in September will be National Hunting and Fishing Day. We'll have different regions will have basically a big day geared mainly towards kids, giving them the opportunity, but it's also to people just looking to get some more information about uh, wildlife in our state. Then there's whether it's our partners with Fish and Wildlife Service, with the refuges, national forests, or our WMAs. There's if you've got opportunities to or time to try to do some volunteer work, that'd be great. Just reach out to our region offices and see what's available. Some regions have more opportunities than others, depending on what time of the year. But just kind of get out there and get involved. That's kind of the best way to look at it that way.
We as I would love to get involved. Maybe on that day, I'll probably hit y'all up on maybe setting up something to just to help out anyway to get these kids involved. And that's the biggest thing.
Right, right. Yeah, and that goes well with kind of our mission to add opportunities for the public within Louisiana to enjoy our resources. So um, it's a great opportunity to just get out there and get involved. And that too could look like 4-H or FFA, things like that within the school system that they can do as well.
Brad, I really do appreciate you coming on and shedding some light on some of these issues. We live in a day and age where information is everywhere, but that doesn't mean the correct information is everywhere. And simple thing as Google might not be the full truth. And to come on here and represent the state of Louisiana and the Wildlife and Fisheries Department and the Deer Program, I think it's very beneficial for everybody to hear that straight from y'all and to where they can go on and again, I say start either by calling or go to y'all's website to find information. Don't just see a Facebook page post and then share that Facebook post because that's how misinformation gets out about CWD, the population, and hunting in general, right? So to be able
Right.
to sit down and talk with you, I do appreciate it. Is there anything that you want to say before we get out of here?
No, man, I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate you reaching out, and I just look forward to meeting some other hunters out there that like minded and have deer in mind, but they've got wildlife in mind too. So it's our job to manage these resources, and we can't do it without the help of the hunters out there. So appreciate you and appreciate everybody out there hunting too.
Well, Brad, again, I appreciate. Well, I learned something today. I didn't know we were going to have a deer season, for velvet. So that's very important. I'll probably actually go hang a couple of stands next weekend or something like that. But again, I appreciate everything that y'all are doing in the department, and stay rugged.
Appreciate it, man. Y'all have a good day.